Welcome to Keep the Game Beautiful podcast. Each week, I highlight incredible people who are doing amazing things in soccer, the beautiful game. I'm Anna Turi, your host. Thank you for listening. I am excited to release my first episode from United Soccer Coaches Convention. I am very grateful I had the opportunity to go to Kansas City this year and be back in person and reunited with everyone. I am glad I got to meet people that I've only met virtually, but also many new connections that will help me in the future. Today with Amy Griffin, we talk about multiple different things. We talk about goalkeeping. We talk about being a backup goalkeeper. That's something I've struggled with, and it can be hard at times, but she has a really interesting input on it. We also talk about being a short goalkeeper. She's not the tallest, and either am I, and that can also be a pretty hard challenge, but she also has a good outlook on that, and everyone has their own personal strengths and weaknesses. There is a little bit of a sound issue around the 5-minute mark. We were able to get most of it, but not all of it. My sound director is free, so we keep him around for that. Anyways, enjoy the episode. Today, Amy Griffin is joining me from United Soccer Coaches Convention in Kansas City. Amy played at the University of Central Florida and then won the 1991 World Cup. She's the coach of the U.S. Deaf Soccer Women's National Team, winning the 2016 Deaf World Cup. Today, she received the Women's Soccer Award of Excellence. Amy, go ahead and give me a little bit more of your background and what got you to where you are today.
Well, that all started when I was in third grade, and I wanted to get dirty, right? I was a little bit of a tomboy, didn't like dolls, didn't like to dress up. My brother played soccer, so I sort of followed in his footsteps. That was the start of it, and I have not looked back since. So, I think every coach has had a really positive impact, and the first was Tom Valentine from the Bionic Booters, right? And I went from the Bionic Booters and the reversible jerseys to, really enjoying the sport, but as a field player until my junior year in high school. And the goalkeeper got hurt in some state cup game, and the coach at the time asked every single person to be in goal, and they all pretty much said, I'd rather not, or no, and sometimes it was in a polite way, and sometimes it was like, there's no way in heck I'm doing that. And I kind of was like, whatever you need, I'll go in. And we played against Michelle Akers' team, who also grew up in Seattle, and we got pummeled. But the very next day, Dan Swain, the coach of the Olympic development team at the time, called and asked me to try out for the team, and I thought he meant as a field player. So I showed up as a field player, and he says, Amy, go get your gloves on. And I said, I was too nervous to say anything other than I don't have any gloves. And he said, you mean to tell me that you're not responsible enough to bring your own gloves? And I got in the end of the line of the goalkeepers, and somehow I honestly asked him later what he saw in that game, because I don't think I made a save. And he said there was something about your reaction and how you responded that made me think that you could pull this off. And so it wasn't the mistake, but it was how I responded to every mistake. Yeah. So I became a goalkeeper. Never have been on the field since.
On this podcast, I always start with the same 3 questions. First, what does the beautiful game mean to you?
The beautiful game to me means a way to collectively move a team as one. And I feel like it should be that way on both sides of the ball, where there's some connection so that you can't tell where the nucleus is, because everyone plays an equally important role.
What are actions or things you do to keep the game beautiful?
Well, I'm a very selfish person, and so for me it's how much fun can I have on the day. And for me, that's the beautiful game. So my closest friends, my most memorable moments, even the excruciating ones that are memorable, have been on the soccer field or as a fan, have been with my family, So I think if I can maximize the potential for fun, that's how I keep the passion sort of in that lens.
How do you encourage others to keep the game beautiful?
You know what? I don't know how much I really encourage others. I think I really help provide an environment that allows people to be free and allows people to see that it's okay to make mistakes. And like I honestly have this visceral reaction if people aren't having fun, right? If you can tell it's not their passion, but maybe it's their parents' passion. And I'm like, it is what you're choosing to do with your free time. And people don't say I got to go work soccer. They say they have to go play soccer. And so I want it to look like playing. And hopefully I can provide some of that to other people just by providing a place for them to feel the same way I do.
You talk about not playing at the World Cup and being the backup goalkeeper. How did you still feel a part of the team?
I think one of the most valuable lessons sports can teach you, and everyone tells you that, being an athlete, being a sport can teach you time management and teach you how to be a good teammate and teach you how to fail. And can be taught in something that really doesn't matter. I'm not doing brain surgery. I'm not curing cancer. Is how to fill the space in the most impactful, positive way possible. And whatever role you play is equally important. So when I was the starting goalkeeper and got off the plane and was the second goalkeeper or the third, who knows, I had a choice. And I know how much my teammates were really sad for me, because I had been on that team for 4 years and had been duking it out, and this new keeper came on. And so I could sort of feel their sort of sympathy and their empathy for what I was going through, and I didn't like seeing them that way. And I was like, I can choose to mope in my room and make everyone worried about me, and then we have less of a chance of winning a World Cup. And more than anything, I want a ring and I want a medal. We've put this much time and energy in it. There's no turning back now. So it was really clear to me that I needed to do what the team needed, and that would be to be Mary Harvey's number one fan. And I didn't feel like it, to be honest, on the inside. My outsides and insides didn't match. But pretty soon I realized how much fun being a positive member of society was helpful for me, right? And one of my favorite pictures is standing on the podium, and there was two of us that didn't play 1 second. There was even a game that the team didn't have to win because we had already advanced and into the next round. So it could have been a throwaway game. But I think Anson really wanted this new keeper to have one more game under her belt. And we all thought we were going to play. We're like, he's going to play us in this game for sure, right? And he didn't. But I look at all the pictures, and you can't tell with either one of us bench buddies that we didn't play. You would have thought that we had scored the winning goal because we were so happy for the team.
How can we encourage other backup goalkeepers, maybe high school age, to be happy for the starting goalkeeper and also work harder to get back on?
I think that's a really great question, and I think there's many times that you can highlight the backup goalkeepers for being great either in their role or at training, right? And I honestly think being very honest and transparent with, one, how important the role is, and two, what they are good at and what they need to do to close that gap to potentially have the spot, and most importantly, to be ready, right? That's the last thing. I mean, I was in college and I was cheering on. I was so used to being on the bench in college. I didn't play until my junior year, and the keeper at the time was the current keeper on the national team, which is one of the reasons I went to Central Florida, was so that she could challenge me. And I wasn't really prepared for her to get hurt. I was so used to being a cheerleader, and she got hurt, and the coach said, "Almond, get your gloves on." And I was trying to be calm. I was so not in the headspace to get. It was a playoff game in the NCAA's, and I tried to be calm, and I said, "All right, I got my gloves on." I said, "Hey, does somebody want to kick a ball at me?" While the trainer was going out there, and, "Hey, someone kick a ball." No one was listening. "Hey, someone want to kick a ball." No one was listening. And I said, "Somebody kick a ball at me!" And everyone could see how nervous I was. And thankfully, she ended up being okay, and I didn't go in. But that was when I realized, holy, there's some things I could be doing right now to mentally prepare me to be ready. Mm-hmm. So I honestly think the role of a backup goalkeeper is one of the most important roles that you could play, because it is harder. It is harder in many, many ways than all the other roles that you see, because you you torture your body at training. You never get to be in the limelight, and yet you have to be ready for your moment, and it may never come. And mentally, I think it's easy to start and be in the limelight and get all the accolades. But if we didn't have a backup and that starter gets hurt, our team is in a world of trouble.
You went to Central Florida to be challenged. How important is it that we're always looking for the next challenge?
I think it's really important to find a space where you can see what's next. And I think even in life, when you make mistakes, you should always think of what's next. Again, what's your response? If your response is thinking about what you messed up on, you can't have 100% focus on what's next. And I think thinking about what can I do and having a sort of a rubric of what can't I do is having someone that's better than you. And someone that has been in your shoes, right? Someone that's also had someone better than them, so that there's a camaraderie there. I think that's really, really important. It's just not I'm out for me and you're out for you and we're going to battle it out. It's being healthy competitors, I think, is a good thing. But I also think it's kind of lost in youth sports that there's always going to be someone at the top that may not feel like they're being challenged, and then your role as a leader and as one of the best players is to make everyone else around you better, and in that you become an exceptional player. For example, there's some kids on a team that I coach right now, and we added some new players that were really below the level of who was already on the team, and they had the opportunity to throw their hands up every time they mistrapped a ball, and they had the opportunity to sort of be a little cliquey and kind of ostracize them because they weren't at the level. Or what I watched in front of me was them say, "Hey, come kick with us," and the gap closed very, very quickly because of their attitude. Like, "Hey, I got you," and you could see the passing from the veterans get cleaner and cleaner because they knew it had to be clean for them to get the ball back from the rookies, right? And so I don't like the excuse of, "Oh, I need to be challenged." Then be challenged, right? Challenge yourself. Be better.
I'm committed to play at UW Stevens Point next fall, and the current goalkeeper is someone that I've definitely looked up to for a long time. What should I try and learn from her going into the season?
Well, let me ask you, why do you look up to her?
I don't know. There's something about the way she holds herself, definitely. It's very confident, and she's definitely someone that she's coached me in the past at some camps and always been around, and someone that's just helped me build my confidence as well.
So you like her presence.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, I didn't get that when Anson, the national team coach, told me that I needed a presence. I thought he meant I needed to be this flamboyant, crazy goalkeeper that put eye black under my eyes and swore a lot. And it wasn't until after I was no longer on the national team that I realized what a quality it is to play bigger than yourself, right? To how you carry yourself, that you have this calm, confidence, presence that the back line in front of you loves playing in front of you. And so the fact that you recognize that quality, I would say those are the things those are the questions you ask. And some of it's just going to be experience, but the fact that you have a good role model to sort of follow those actions until they feel comfortable, you're just going to act it out until they become you, I think is a step. Just the fact that you recognize that is awesome. That presence piece is probably more important than how high you can jump, right? Is having that, "I got you, you're fine to your backs when things are going crazy and it's the last minutes of the game and your team's losing their legs, to have somebody back there that says, "No worries, we're okay."
Is presence something that we can teach?
Well, I think you can, if you can show some good examples and why they're good examples. I didn't get it when my coach said you need to have a presence. But the last game I played in at the Olympic Sports Festival, I remember just communicating early. I remember our defenders getting tired and things were starting to break down. And I remember being exhausted at the end of the game, and I really hadn't made many saves. But I had a blast because I was so involved and I was mentally checked in and never unplugged. And that's when I was like, I know what Anson was talking about. So I think it's an element that's missed. I think we spend way too much time on shot stopping and flying around with no intention. So I think it can be, even through watching video, freeze the video. What are you thinking right now as a goalkeeper? Are you thinking if the next touch is a poor one, are we still going to be okay? Have I thought about what's next?
Being a short goalkeeper can also be very tough at times. Did you ever get overlooked because of your height?
I'm sure I did. And I also think my career was shorter than, no pun intended, was shorter than I would have liked it to be, because I still felt like at training I could compete with the best. And in a 4v4 match, the teams I was on would win more than they would lose. And I think that got overlooked. But I also think I was missing that presence piece. And so I think if I would have had that, I also think if you can prove that you can cover the goal, and that people have to earn, if every goal that goes in is earned, and that's going to happen, and somehow have conversations with coaches for them to take note, then you can flip the conversation to be a little bit more in your favor. Because I do think short goalkeepers have other assets that tall goalkeepers do not. And sometimes I get so frustrated with tall goalkeepers because I'm like, it's like cheating, right? Mm-hmm. If I can jump so high, and if you're jumping 1 inch and getting to the same height that I'm getting, then you should be getting balls way higher than me. But they don't, right? They don't. So I just have to max out my potential and live on my developmental edge every single day, where they may not. It's the same with male goalkeepers sometimes that are more explosive and taller. I think we have to be cleaner. Our feet have to be cleaner. Our body shape has to be cleaner, because we can't just throw a long, powerful limb out there and save it. We have to find different ways to get there. So I think what we do is even more extraordinary.
Yeah, sometimes I get a little jealous of the taller goalkeepers. Yeah. But there's some things that I realize I can do better. I can get down to the ground quicker and a little more agile.
100%. Yeah.
Sometimes we have head coaches that necessarily don't know a whole lot about the position. How should they support their goalkeeper?
There's a lot of ways, and one is to include them in the field training. I know my first 5 years, and I really struggled in coaching school, and I wanted to become a coach. It was the goalkeepers just go mess around with each other, and then when it's shooting practice at the end, you can come join the team. And I could have easily been working on my feet and been a part of the team if they would have just found ways to include us in training. Even if it's a rondo, and when you're in the middle, you can use your hands, so you can work on your breakaway saves. And when you're defending, you're a goalkeeper. And when you're attacking, you're a field player. I also think it's not that hard to watch a YouTube video these days and to have access to a couple of drills, or contact the local goalkeeper in your area that has experience and say, hey, can you give me 5-6 drills, and to spend 15 minutes a couple times a week just one-on-one with the goalkeeper. I think that will a lot of respect will come that coach's way, and they'll develop a little bit of a relationship. And even with that, even just value, it's just a quick symbol of how much someone values goalkeeping. I think isn't as hard as people make it out to be. I think people use, I don't know anything about goalkeeping, as an excuse. I can coach field players, and I wasn't a field player, during the height of my career, and so figure it out. Spend some time doing it.
This morning you spent some time during your speech talking about the Deaf World Cup. You had mentioned that you were one of the only few hearing people there. What was that experience like?
I didn't know going into it that, and out of pure ignorance, that going to a Deaf World Cup meant that everyone would be deaf. And it was almost embarrassing that we needed an interpreter, and you could see the other countries sort of turning their noses up at us because I'm not a deaf coach. And I mean, things were happening so fast that I was probably getting less than 40% of the information. And I was concentrating so hard on trying to figure out what was going on as a leader of the team. And, I'd be saying, what? Can you tell me again? And use the sign for again. And they would roll their eyes and get frustrated. Oh my gosh, well, that's what happens to deaf people, right? And they're trying so hard to read people's lips, especially now with everyone wearing masks, right? They're trying so hard to fit into a hearing world because there is not equal access, that I was exhausted by about 8 o'clock at night. I'm a night owl, and Joy Fawcett and I would go to our rooms and go, what just happened today? And it's the same. You watch the players on the deaf team, and they will take their cochlear implants or their hearing aids out because they're just tired of trying to hear, right? They're tired of trying, and they, sleep like logs. But it was really valuable to technically be disabled. And now when I'm somewhere watching TV, actually it happens a lot at sporting events. If I'm at the Sounders game or a University of Washington soccer game or wherever, and they have cool stuff going on the big screen, right? And they have the athletes talking, and there's no captioning on the bottom. I feel embarrassed. Like, I'm embarrassed that we're not better than that, because it's an easy thing, and it can become a new habit to just, everyone has that on so that when deaf people walk into the room, they have a sense of what's going on. And think about it. When you grew up, probably most of the stuff you learned wasn't while you were reading a book or having a one-on-one conversation like we're having. Mm-hmm. As a kid, you enter the room and your mom's talking on the phone, and your teammates are talking in the locker room, and you're picking up a little bit of that, and someone's walking down the hall. So if you're deaf, you're missing all of that unless every single person is signing, which doesn't happen.
What can we do to start to make things more equal?
I think just that, one, creating awareness, and finding ways to come closer to having access for everyone. And I think in the deaf culture, they would disagree and say that they don't have a disability because they can do everything. They can do everything I can do, and you can do. It's just harder. And I always sort of argue, and I shouldn't because I'm not deaf, but I see how much harder it is for some players at a restaurant. I see how some people overlook them when I'm in line and they ask me the question and don't even give the respect to one of the deaf players to ask them a question and figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. So I think creating an awareness and finding ways for, like I said, closed captioning as part of the Girls Academy. I think people have noticed that all the videos now have captioning on them. There's a player on the deaf team that plays in the Girls Academy, and so just one small habit at a time could change, would make a big difference.
This morning you also shared a story about a little girl who came to training and really just changed. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Somebody found out about the deaf team, a dad, and his daughter had just gone through a ton of terrible treatments to help cure her cancer. And the treatments caused her to lose her hearing, and so she had to wear hearing aids, and she was only 8, so it was a pretty dramatic change for her. And she didn't want to wear them, and they had all these different, they tried big ones, small ones, her favorite color, ones that, were the flesh tones, anything and everything to get her to wear these hearing aids. They bribed her, they gave her candy, and she didn't want to be deaf, right? Didn't want that stigma to be a part of who she was at 8. And her dad said, she says she's getting bullied, but I don't really think she is. I think people are just curious and staring and want to know and don't know how to ask and are uncomfortable. And can she please come to camp and just meet the girls on the team? And I said, 100%. So I told the team, there's this girl named Aaliyah. She's coming to come to one training. They're flying here from Boston. We were in Texas. And she came through the lobby, and she sort of had her head down, eyes on her shoelaces, shoulder-length hair that was over, sort of over her face. You could barely see her face. Very quiet, and the players just invited her into the van, and off we went without a moment's notice. The players are amazing because they're like, I know exactly what you're going through. I've been you. I am you. So she didn't have a choice, but she could not go. They were not going to let her get in the car with her dad. She was going in the van. She pops out and she doesn't say a word, but she starts shagging balls in the warm-up, and then the players come over and say, can she train with us? And I said, you guys, she's 8. Like, we only have 4 days of training. Our team is not funded, and so every day we only have a couple camps a year. Every day is really important, but you could tell this was more important to the players on the team. So I said, okay, and off this 8-year-old went, joining our possession game, and she had an absolute blast, and the dad said thank you, and we'll be following. Good luck. And off they went. And I got a text the next morning that said, I hope you don't mind, but Malia wanted to stay. She didn't leave. She wanted to stay. And could we come to your next training? Of course, we said yes. And this time, there was a new Malia. And this Malia came sprinting into the lobby, high-fiving the players. And the reason she looked different, I don't know, it was because it was the sparkle in her eye, the smile on her face, or the fact that her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, magnifying these huge pink hearing aids, where she was like, I cannot wait to show off that I am like you, was sort of a moment that I sort of learned a lesson, and that's what makes sports so great, right? The players were right. That was way more important than having a practice without an 8-year-old involved.
How important is it that we show more deaf soccer and more power chair soccer so kids that may be struggling have someone to look up to?
The older I get, the more important I think it becomes, and I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't really realize I've had a voice for way longer than I've known, and I've only really just started to fight for things, and embarrassed that I didn't kind of see the issues for as significant as they are. We did every time we were at camp, we always want to pay it forward. So we always do a free clinic for all kids, but we always reach out to the deaf and hard of hearing communities. And there's schools that may have special programs, so there's schools for the deaf, and we always make sure that they know that if they come to this camp, they're going to be the celebrated ones. And the last camp we did was in Salt Lake City, and we had a question and answer at the end, and our youth rep, her name is Sydney Andrews, and she was answering all the questions. And one of the girls we remembered from 3 years before that was really animated, really energetic, and really excited, and she had come back 3 years later, and she said, when are you going to have opportunities for us? When are you going to have opportunities for us? And Sydney was sort of backpedaling, and she goes, well, that's what we're trying to do. We want to create an organization where maybe all the deaf kids we can have a tournament and we get them all together, right? Because the player pool is smaller than all hearing kids. So we find them. We have to find them first, and we have a tournament for all the deaf kids. And she goes, we just need to find them. And this little girl said, we're right here. And she was looking around like, let's go. And so it made me realize, and that's kind of it's the coolest thing being a bystander as the coach on this team. I'm just sort of a conduit to help keep things moving. Watching how much fun there's no other platform where deaf kids where they get to hang out with other deaf players, except for Gallaudet University, and there's only a few of those players on our team. So they don't ever want to get off the field, and rarely do they want to head back home. And rarely can everyone communicate with everyone, because some speak, some read lips, some sign, some don't. So 100% we need to find ways to include all communities, right? Because somewhere someone is always feeling a little bit left out, and it's not a great place to feel.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite stories is we had a goalkeeper camp over the summer, and we had a boy with hearing aids, and he was completely unaware. My dad and I were there, and he brought up, I was wearing my US Deaf Soccer crew neck, one of my favorite shirts, but I was wearing it, and I pointed it out to him, the logo, and he was amazed. You saw the sparkle in his eye, and he was excited to learn all about this.
Nice.
It was really
See, so you made a difference, right? Because you have a shirt, and it is. You heard their motto is the greatest team you've never heard about. And on the women's side, they've never lost an international match, and we're probably the most successful American team in a team sport, and no one knows, right? Nobody knows. So
And that's something crazy too, never losing a match. Do you feel pressure with that at all?
Yeah, and I'm terrible under pressure. No, I think that's why I'm a goalkeeper. I thrive on it. Part of me senses the pressure the players have, and it seems agonizing. And we haven't had, since 2016 World Cup, we didn't go to the Deaf Olympics in 2017 because it was in Turkey and there was a political coup going on, and we didn't know if we could ensure everyone's safety. So since 2016 we haven't played in another international match. Yeah, and so it wasn't until the first, we had trained 8 days. The time I got the job until the Deaf World Cup, we had only had 2 training camps, 4 days each. So the players pay for their own training camps, so it's not like we can do whatever we want in training. And it wasn't until kickoff of the first game that I said, oh my gosh, these players are almost paralyzed with fear. And not fear of honestly losing a game. And I think we were down 1-0 against Turkey in our opening match and playing, literally paralyzed. And so right then in that moment, part of me wanted to lose that first game just to get that over with. But the competitor in me is like, heck no, not on my watch, right? And we ended up winning, but there is something to be said for the weight that success sort of plays on everyone. And success to me doesn't look like a gold medal. Success to me looks like people that are winners, right? And so it's hard to portray that when you're fighting for a World Cup, but the pressure's huge.
If a team is playing out of fear, how can we help break them out of that?
I think just reminding people that, especially, how it feels. The goalkeeper, Aaron McLeod, said it today too. No one wanted to make that. You're thinking about the future of making a mistake in the future. So how can you be your best in the present moment? And every goalkeeper worries about that big mistake. And then it happens, and you realize that life goes on, and it's probably going to happen again. And so I think realizing that pressure really, really is a privilege. It means it's important to you. That means you care about it. It means you care about your teammates, and you wouldn't want it any other way. And also recognizing that it's okay to be nervous and not trying to hide it, because then you're not authentic and you're not you. And I think there's relief in knowing that it's okay.
You talked a little bit about funding earlier. With having no funding, are there things that you expected would be harder or easier?
I thought for sure we would have funding by now. Especially the climate of celebrating women, and a lot of organizations and companies and everything realizing that we have been underrepresented for a very long time, and the swell of interest in the full national team and all the great things and the platform that they have provided for the world as far as equity and equality. And so I thought, who wouldn't want to align and help represent a team that's never lost an international match, that is all female, that has won 2 Deaf Olympic gold medals and 2 World Championship medals, right? So I'm shocked that people aren't knocking down the door, and am dumbfounded with a disability. Okay, let's just throw that in there, right? And so I honestly thought it would be a lot easier, and we're just taking it one step at a time.
What can people do to support the team?
You can follow on social media and go on the Deaf website, which has, for sure donating, but if you go on the Deaf website, which is also, everything's run by the players and some of the board members, but most of the board members are currently trying to play. For example, one of our captains, Kate Ward, she's been on the team for a decade, and so she's paid for all 4 events. And if she's paid for all 4 events, that means she's paid close to $40,000 of her own money. But if she's paid for all the camps, that means she's probably paid more than $50,000. So she's had to raise money, go to school, pay for her own club soccer experience, and do this. So So there's something really, really wrong with it. I mean, when they won the medal in Turkey, they had to pay for the taxes on their gold medal on the way home. So it's like a bad joke, right? So I think if you go on the U.S. Soccer Deaf website, you'll get to know a little bit more about the organization. And if you follow them on social media, you'll really get a sense of who they are. And for anyone that's ever gone to camp and met the team, they're hooked. And they're like, how can I help? They follow, people volunteer. Pro players have volunteered to help us with the goalkeeper training. People donate facilities. That's another great way. Like, we go wherever we can pay as little money as possible to have a really quality camp. So SoCal Youth Soccer is, helping us find fields. And Soka University is helping us find free fields. Chick-fil-A has donated a team meal. Like, it's sort of easy. It's as much as you want to make of it.
This morning at the breakfast again, which I loved, by the way, found it very funny. But I got a little bit of a sense, and I remember you saying something that you didn't feel like you belonged in the room. And sometimes I kind of get that too, especially in a huge convention like this with a bunch of amazing people. How can we get past this?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because when I was talking to Kate Ward, who I know you've met, I said, I have this podcast I'm excited to do with Anna. And I go, I just met her briefly before I was doing the goalkeeping thing. And I said, what I noticed is I just said this to Kate, and you can ask her. I said, she's young and she seems fearless and she seems like she belongs more than me. Everybody knows her. I said, everybody knows her, and she's kind. And that was my first impression, but I was watching everyone walk up to you, and everyone's been talking about you. And every time I've said I have this thing to do, like, oh, Anna, tell her I said hi. So I think sort of even the things I talked about is even if we keep showing up and we keep trying, maybe there's something good about, maybe we may not feel like we belong because we're trying so hard to make sure others feel like they belong. And so we don't notice it until we sort of wake up and we're like, should I even be here? And it's kind of, but you belong, and everyone belongs. And I think you know that already at a very young age. So I wished like I said, I Leslie, I was her assistant for a really long time. And I spent too much time hiding behind her, and not even realizing I was hiding. I was just hanging out, and who needs two voices when Leslie's got such a strong presence? But I've realized that if everyone has a way they can help, then I should have stepped out from behind that a lot sooner. And you already have.
Now, you and Leslie are great friends, but I wanted to ask before we wrap up, how do you get any work done together?
Well, that's the thing. We don't always agree. And I think that's what makes it even more special, is we challenge each other, we argue, and at the end of the day, we come to an agreement as to what's best for the cause, whatever we're working on. And sometimes it's my idea, sometimes it's hers, sometimes it's neither. And we're actually very efficient because we know there's a rhythm to being friends for, close to 40 years. And so she doesn't need to look over my shoulder when I'm doing my job, and I don't need to look over hers. And, it's hilarious that we could pick up each other's sentences when we want to, but we're very, very different. So I think there's some efficiency in being comfortable. Right, you don't have to deal with the niceties, and you don't have to be polite, and you just get to be.
Yeah. So I have one final question, which I ask each guest. What do you hope people remember about your impact to soccer and the world?
I think I've been in a really unique space in the roles that I've played, mostly as an assistant coach, and even with the deaf team, where when the pressure's on, and I have never intentionally done this, but when people that I haven't seen in a couple years, players like Sam Mewis, who I helped. I didn't coach. I was the goalkeeper coach while she was on. Players like Sam Mewis, coaches like Steve Swanson that have been the pressures on the head coaches. They are the ones that say, "Oh my gosh, thank gosh you were at camp," because I remember just needing to smile, right? I remember just needing to realize why I really started playing. Like, what is your why? No one started playing to win a gold medal, but that's all the pressure they feel. No one started playing to get a college scholarship, but all of a sudden they lose the plot, and because of the cost of colleges, or the pressure of parents, or comparison is the thief of joy. And I think people just automatically start comparing Twitter accounts and likes and all this stuff that doesn't matter. Some reason I think I can keep it real enough that people remember why they played.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a real treat.
Amy has a great outlook on the Deaf World Cup. I think it was interesting how she talks about being the minority in that situation, how she was one of the only few hearing people there. And that's quite interesting to me. I never really thought of it in that way, but it's true. She stepped in the shoes of maybe what a deaf person may go through in the day-to-day life. It obviously is not the exact same, but she was maybe a little bit behind in conversations sometimes, or didn't understand things fully. And that's really interesting to me. Also, talking about imposter syndrome, everyone has, not everyone, but most people have feelings like this, that they don't belong where they are. And it's kind of interesting that someone as amazing as Amy Griffin has those feelings as well, and that I am not alone. I really enjoyed talking to Amy today, and I hope you enjoyed listening. Until next time, remember to keep the game beautiful.